The Galactic Council had made their first mistake 23 years ago, when they thought they could break humanity's spirit by exiling their queen. Their second mistake was believing she would stay gone. Admiral Zektar of the Hegemony Fleet watched through the bridge's crystalline viewport as the human armada emerged from hyperspace. The sight should have been impossible. When Queen Helena Voss had been banished to the Outer Rim with nothing but a single frigate and a handful of loyal followers, the Council had stripped humanity of its military assets, its trade routes, and its dignity. They had reduced the once proud Terran Empire to a collection of subjugated colonies, their people treated as little more than indentured servants across a dozen star systems. Yet here she was, returning with a fleet that defied all logic and expectation. "Sensor readings, Lieutenant?" Zektar's mandibles clicked nervously as his subordinate's scales shifted to an alarmed purple. "Sir, we're detecting over 300 vessels. The energy signatures, they're unlike anything in our databases. Some appear to be of human origin but heavily modified. Others..." The lieutenant's voice trailed off in confusion. "Others don't match any known galactic civilizations." Through the vast expanse of space, the human fleet spread like a plague of stars. At its heart flew the Vindication, a massive dreadnought that bore the crimson and gold banners of the old Terran Empire, but its hull gleamed with technologies that seemed to bend light itself around its edges. Flanking it were vessels that the Council's intelligence networks had never catalogued. Sleek ships with organic curves that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, angular craft that seemed to phase in and out of visible spectrum, and massive carriers whose hangars disgorged fighters that moved like living things through the void. Queen Helena Voss stood on her command deck, no longer the broken ruler who had been cast out in disgrace. Her once pristine uniform had been replaced by armor that told the story of 2 decades in exile. Scarred metal plates inscribed with symbols from a dozen different worlds, a cape woven from the silk of the Andorian wastes, and a crown forged from the crystallized core of a dead star. But her eyes, those unchanged blue eyes, still burned with the same fierce intelligence that had once made the Council tremble. "Your Majesty," her chief tactical officer reported, "the Hegemony Fleet is moving to intercept. They're demanding our immediate surrender and your return to custody." Helena's lips curved into a smile that had haunted the nightmares of her enemies for years. "Signal all ships. Tell them exactly what they told me 23 years ago. No." The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for centuries to come, not just for its tactical brilliance, but for the way it shattered every assumption the galactic powers had held about human limitations. The Hegemony forces, confident in their numerical superiority and advanced weaponry, moved in traditional formation. They had fought the old human fleets before and knew their capabilities. What they hadn't expected was that Queen Helena had spent 2 decades in the galactic fringe, not cowering in defeat, but building something unprecedented. Her ships moved with inhuman coordination, their tactics borrowing from the hive mind strategies of the crystalline entities she had befriended in the void clusters. When the Hegemony opened fire with their plasma batteries, Helena's vessels responded with weapons that seemed to devour energy itself. Dark matter cannons developed in partnership with the shadow dwellers of the Umbral Nebula, creatures so alien that most species couldn't even perceive them without technological aid. But it wasn't just the technology that made the difference. It was the crew. Among Helena's fleet sailed representatives of a dozen species that the Galactic Council had dismissed as primitives, or non-entities, the energy beings of the Corona systems, the mechanical collectives from dead worlds beyond the galactic rim, and the ancient artificial intelligences that had been slumbering in derelict ships for millennia. Helena had done what no galactic leader had ever thought possible. She had united the unwanted, the forgotten, and the dismissed into a force that made the established powers look like children playing with toys. As the Hegemony flagship erupted in brilliant flame, Admiral Zektar transmitted his final message. "How? We destroyed your infrastructure, your shipyards, your very civilization." Helena's response echoed across every frequency, broadcast to every ship in both fleets. "You destroyed what you could see." But humanity's greatest strength was never our ships or our worlds. It was our refusal to accept that anything is impossible. Within 3 hours, the Hegemony fleet was scattered. Within 6, Helena's forces had established orbital control over the capital world of New Geneva, the seat of human government that had been occupied by Council forces for over 2 decades. The human colonists who had lived under alien rule looked up at the sky to see their banners flying once again. But now they flew alongside the flags of allies their people had never imagined. The exiled queen had returned not just with vengeance, but with proof of humanity's greatest talent, the ability to find hope in the darkest places and forge alliance from impossibility. As Helena stood on the balcony of the rebuilt Terran palace, addressing her people for the first time in 23 years, she spoke words that would echo through history. They thought exile was our punishment. Instead, it became our education. They gave us the galaxy to explore, and we made it our classroom. Today, we don't just reclaim our place among the stars. We redefine what it means to be worthy of them. The Galactic Council would discover, in the trials that followed, that their greatest error hadn't been underestimating human technology or tactics. It had been underestimating the human capacity to turn every setback into a setup for an even greater comeback. The exiled queen had returned, and she had brought more than blood, banners, and a fleet. She had brought revolution.